Hello and welcome to Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora, and I am a galactic walk-in. I bring that up on almost every episode in order to share with you my perspective. This is the idea that I'm a newcomer to this world, I have an outsider viewpoint, and that I also have a perspective and information that is based upon coming from a different place and having a different format. So, for example, when I speak about something like ascension, or when I speak about the flying rainbow lasagna, I'm sharing this information from my viewpoint, from my perspective, and not from having read books written by other people and gleaned information from them. Everything that I'm sharing here, or for the most part, what I try to share here are original recipes, not recipes or ideas that I read in someone else's recipe book, and then I'm telling you the procedure of how to do them. So this is the idea that this is new information, that it's innovative, and that you can trust me as a source of information because of the perspective that I have, or because of the experiences that I've had. So the analogy is like saying, I paint pictures of a landscape of like China, a far-off land, and I actually have been to the place, I actually have seen what it looks like, and I am a good painter. I can paint something that looks like a thing. So if I saw China, I could actually come back here and paint paintings of what it actually looks like. Well, what I paint in my current paintings, it's not landscapes of China, it is landscapes of a higher dimensional reality. And I visit and visited and come from and emanate from that higher dimensional reality. And I'm not the only person that's ever been there. I'm very, very flattered when people visit my studio and they say, wow, you invented all of this. I cannot take credit for inventing the entire vibratory language and structure of the cosmos in my present format. I can only take credit for creating the flying rainbow lasagna. That is my contribution made in this interdimensional or cosmic language of vibration. So to be impeccable, I call it the interdimensional language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. Tone being like la la la, a tone of music. That these sensory qualities represent the basic abstraction of vibration, which is what is actually in existence, and that in order for us to come together and meet beings that are formed very differently, they might not have a biological format, or they might have a biological format, but their time scale might be very different than ours. They might live for 1 billion years instead of 100 years. They might live for 1 second instead of 100 years. How to interact with beings that have a different format, might be coming from a different direction, and might be moving at a vastly different rate. This is what giving birth to the new dimension is all about. So I speak about this almost every week, how we have been artificially bifurcated, separated into 2 distinct areas of experience. And this is a software program or an idea that has been implanted in your mind, in our group collective consciousness as humans on Earth's surface, to experience, quote unquote, the inner realm as being separated from, quote unquote, the outer realm. And the inner realm could be defined as everything that science cannot photograph with, photo emulsion. Your thoughts, your dreams, your feelings, your passion, your chi or your life force, or, that which makes your heart beat and makes your lungs breathe. It's your neurological energy. It is your field of possibilities and probabilities, or like the bubble of time that surrounds your body and represents everything that you can be. And to contrast this with everything that science can take a photograph of, like your physical body and the blood that runs through it, and the world of hard-edged objects, and the world of, quote-unquote, other people and other organisms, that there's a distinction that has been made that is an intellectual distinction, self versus the world. But this is an artificial bifurcation. Really, each one of us is submerged within a sea of energy. We are submerged within this context. We don't come here as like hermetically sealed, vacuum-packed beings that never interact with, that never either emit energy to our environment or receive energy from our environment. Ah ha ha, how utterly ridiculous. That would be like saying you came here in a spacesuit with all of your toothpaste tube food, and that's all you ate for your whole entire life, and never, breathed anything other than bottled air. And that's of course not the way you came here. Came here as a tiny infant. I'm presuming my audience is multicellular human life. And you thrived on breast milk and tiny morsels of food from the outside realm, and you had to learn about how to breathe air and not get sick from pathological organisms that are surrounding you. You had to build an immune system. This is all the journey of learning to be part of this world. And today is a relatively overcast, cloudy day. I have to have shoes on. I'm outside in my lovely garden. But on most days I record out here, my feet do not have shoes on them. And there is literally no distinction. There's just a continuum of energy and organisms that goes from myself as an organism to my epithelial cells, to the fungi and molds and yeasts that live on the outside of my epidermis, to the fungi and molds and yeasts that live on the surface of the beautiful garden soil, and then to Earth herself. So this is the idea that we are here as part of Earth, and Earth is a consciousness herself. And of course, I'm a walk-in, so there have been big challenges for me and my understanding of Earth and my capacity to be invested in this human body the way that a hand fits into a glove. And I've been here for about 15 years. I'm coming up on my anniversary of walking in, which is October 8th of 2001. I've been here for about 15 years, right? And as I've been here, I've become more invested in this body. And the more that I am, the more that I'm able to not only move my muscles and have access to my neurology, I'm also able to understand the profundity and the sophistication of Earth and the biological structure around me. So to give you an example, I never used to understand how important and sophisticated the microbial realm, the microbiome, is here in this world. I was programmed, like many people, just to think that a one-celled organism couldn't be thoughtful or intelligent or sophisticated or necessary or part of the journey of consciousness. And since I started growing a garden in the past couple of years, I had to learn more about what breaks down the tiny minerals that are in soil to make them available to plants so your plants can thrive. And the answer is the very same organisms, types of organisms, that exist within our own small intestines, within our own digestive tract. Your gut, your microbiome that lives inside of you, it's about 3 to 5 pounds of bacteria that are benevolent bacteria. These are tiny little consciousnesses that ride along with your physical structure that help you to digest your food. So plants would not be able to survive and thrive and have access to micronutrients that are, molecular minerals in the soil if it were not for these tiny microorganisms and mycelium that break down those substances and make it available to the plant. And so too is it with ourselves as large organic multicellular organisms. We rely upon this interrelationship with tiny one-celled organisms just to eat food and stay alive. And the more that I learned about this, the more that I delved and I learned about mitochondria. These are now features within your own cells. They're like little batteries or energy centers. However, at one point in biological evolution, these little energy centers didn't live within your cells. They lived outside of your cells. And at a certain point, human biology decided to have a wonderful, beautiful partnership. It said, hey, you don't have to live out there. You can live in here, inside of my cell membrane. I'll give you lots of nutrients and protection, and you can give me lots of energy and do good things for my body. And it's like a marriage made in heaven, and then it's been that way ever since. So all of this talking and backstory in order to paint a picture of how interconnected we are as life and as consciousness, and that's just on the surface of this planet. And the relationships that I just described are the profound and necessary relationships just so that we can have food, just so that you can sit down and eat a salad. All of those amazing things have to be going on. Well, we also live within a context of consciousness that is galactic. And many humans on Earth are not aware of this. The official party line is that humans don't even believe in intelligent life off of the surface of their planet. However, of course, there are, just like in the Dark Ages, think like, the 1100s in Europe, that there were the official teachings of the Catholic Church about, things like Earth being the center of the universe and everything like that, and the religious dogma about the importance of humanity. And many people didn't believe in that Dark Ages cosmology either. They kept it quietly to themselves, however, because of nasty things, that the church would do if you disagreed with them. So in our present day, there are a lot of people who also similarly do not buy the official line or official lie, which states that humans are the only intelligent life that exists in the cosmos. I mean, I would just do my silly laugh, ah ha ha ha, how silly, except that some people actually believe this. And some people that actually believe this, the people who believe this, that there is not intelligent life elsewhere, are the people who are considered right thinkers in this world, scientists and teachers and intellectuals and people who set the tone for what is appropriate to be believed. And people who believe in intelligent life elsewhere in this time and place are considered to be fringe dwellers and people who are not necessarily at the center of what is accepted in terms of social consensus. And I've spoken about my journey coming here as a walk-in and choosing to be an artist in order to share my ideas and my information that I have. I realized that science as it presently stands requires a certain amount of social consensus and peer review, and that if you have ideas that are really different than what is considered to be the current accepted crop of ideas, then being a scientist is not necessarily the best area for free expression. So I really chose to be an artist because one does not require any amount of social consensus to make a painting or a sculpture. I simply can do it. That's the idea, actually, I think, of being an artist, that role is a person who doesn't have to answer to other people but follows their own inner guidance or intuition or inner vision and makes something uncompromisingly and shares it with the rest of the world or, the rest of society. So it is like saying that when you choose to be an artist, you choose specifically not to have a boss, not to have a consensus that says you are or aren't allowed to do or say or think something, and that the intention is to stretch the boundaries of what is considered to be an idea that is in society. So that's a very good segue for me to bring up in this episode the flying rainbow lasagna. The flying rainbow lasagna shape is my original invention. It's my original creation, and it is open source code. It is for everyone to use, for everyone to apply to their own journey or to their own shape of their life or to their own DNA and your own biological structure. So this body would have died when the previous occupant, the ego structure that held it together, left and was murdered and was left, couldn't be here anymore. And it was the flying rainbow lasagna tool or idea or concept that allowed the genetic structure of this body to be rearranged so that I, as abstract consciousness, could come and inhabit this form. So people often ask me, do you remember where you were before you were here? And it has been a very long journey to be able to share this information because my transit into this body was so traumatic and tied up with events of great duress. Like, it's a battle, and the battle is still ongoing, and it actually relates to what is happening presently in terms of, events on Earth. So it's a war that's been going on for a very long time, and the war also exists, what we could say, outside of time. It's not just the events on our timelines, it's the rewriting of timelines and the reshaping of time itself. I've spoken about this on other broadcasts. That's really what black magic is. Black magic is what in extraterrestrial technology is known as on Earth's surface. So now you understand that the artificial manipulation and distortion of time fields by using trapped or victimized consciousness is a form of extraterrestrial technology. And I've put ETs into two basic camps, not that I want to make it so dualistic. There are, a wide array of all sorts of different types of extraterrestrial consciousnesses. I have loosely divided them into two different types of groups because this is all part of preparing for giving birth, or we are in the process of giving birth right now. So this means you do not require government disclosure, an official press release from the White House. You do not require footage of extraterrestrial saucer-shaped vehicles landing on the White House lawn. None of this is required. This whole idea of full disclosure or documents being released by the government that confirm or affirm this, none of that is necessary or required. And also, please do not expect that to happen because our government is right now not under the control of humans and human consciousness. So just as I have said that our human mind, quote unquote, is a hacked operating system, that just like Windows 10, you install it and it gives Microsoft, the company that made the program, access to all of your emails and everything that's stored on your computer, so too does the human mind, the human operating system, allow access to human consciousness and human ideas and human behavior from the beings that created the human mind. This is how humans are controlled by malevolent extraterrestrial presences, but these are not extraterrestrials who, fly through the sun on wings of pure light. These are extraterrestrials who use technology. And so the basic distinction, the beings that do not have the capacity to accomplish everything they need to accomplish using only what is provided by nature and using only love as we could think of it as the energy, the electricity, the juice, the fuel that makes things happen. What I just described, those are the experts. You could think of them as spirit beings, like perhaps the indigenous cultures would think of these as spiritual creatures. They do not require a hardware mainframe to support their consciousness, nor do they require a physical, biological, organic, multicellular structure to support their consciousnesses. And I would describe and define these beings as the experts. Like, we're in a symphony or we're in a band, and each one of us has a body, and your body is like your instrument, and we are all the good ones, good players, trying to tune our instruments and play beautiful, harmonious music together. And of course, I've described how there are some punk rock anarchists playing the kettle drum rather loudly and not on the beat. But the idea is that if you do not play the music of the cosmos properly, you don't follow the musical score, that you get kicked out of the band. That means you lose your body. Your body is your instrument and you don't have anything with which to play anymore. So the beings that lost their instruments, millennia ago, and they were not emanated on wings of love, those are the beings who require artifice or some form of technology. They didn't have some place to go, so they live in this artificial realm. You could think of it as an AI program, like artificial intelligence program. You could think of it as an algorithm. You could think of it as a matrix, a la the movie The Matrix. It is a false reality, like a virtual reality. And in our present Earth surface culture, when you see things like technology that is being used to create a virtual reality, you understand that that is the agenda, the transhumanist agenda. So the transhumanist agenda basically is the belief, the erroneous belief rooted in deep insecurity and feelings of being not good enough, that one requires some form of technological implant in order to achieve the highest levels of transformative consciousness. And that is false and ridiculous. Ha ha ha. No, you don't need a microchip to help you to evolve or to ascend or to reach a higher state of consciousness. Not at all. That's the idea that you weren't given everything you needed at birth, that somehow there was some mistaken omission and a microchip was left out of your brain somehow, and that now that has to somehow be artificially inserted so that you can complete your journey of consciousness. That's quite ridiculous. However, it is understandable seeing the context within which we are, which is the the human genome has been reduced or degraded from its proper functioning. So what humans are supposed to be able to do without artifice or technology, mostly we cannot do. And that is why people believe mistakenly or erroneously that more technology is required in order to do something like achieve superpowers. What is defined as, superhuman powers, like Superman. Superman can fly through the air or melt things with his laser vision of his eyes or is incredibly strong. We're talking about the higher faculties. So I define the higher faculties as the aspect of your spectrum, green and above. So if red is your physical, orange is your mammalian emotions, or are your mammalian emotions, rather, and yellow is your human operating system. Green is the level of unconditional love, and it's at the center of your chest, and your higher faculties balance upon that aspect of your anatomy. It's like a whirling energy field made of unconditional love, and unconditional love is not just an ideal, it is actually a tone. And I just came out of my garden, and I'm here in my studio now, so I'm going to play the note of A tuned to 432 hertz so that you can understand what the tone of unconditional love would sound like. So this is the idea that when you are sending out an equal amount of energy as you are receiving, your energy body makes a lovely tone, and that tone is unconditional love. And this means that we are submerged in time. When you are moving at the right rate through time, when your consciousness is moving at the right rate through time, then you are emitting or achieving unconditional love. And the right rate means you're not thinking about the past and you're not grasping for the future. This is called meditation and mindfulness and being submerged in the present moment now. I don't have to tell you about all of this because there are so many wonderful teachers over the ages that have already been here, that have already taught people about how to, corral, or how to lovingly wrestle your mind into submission so that you can have inner silence and you can be submerged in the now. This is what is different about most humans from most animals, that most animals do not have the human operating system installed as their mind, and they live in the moment now. Doesn't mean they don't have memories. Animals definitely remember the past, and it doesn't mean that they can't anticipate the future. If you've ever seen a cat jump and catch a bird flying out of the sky, it can clearly anticipate where the bird's flight will take it in the next coming seconds so that it can tell where to pounce. Animals definitely understand time. However, they do not spend their mental energy either clinging to events of the past or grasping forward for events of the future. That is in the human domain. And those two actions, these are pretty much depression and anxiety, that when one is unduly weighed down by the emotional burden of memories that are stored up of events of the past, it slows down your energy. You are not able to be fully present in the moment now because you're thinking about the bad thing that happened to you in 3rd grade, or how you didn't send a thank you note to your Aunt Sally when you were 7 years old, and so you don't deserve to be a happy person. And those are just examples, random, strange examples, not taken from life. And they are representative of how your genes change shape in the presence of certain emotions. And guilt is one of those emotions that changes your genes from a blissful state into a slowed down, less well-tuned expression of life and divinity. So we are all here in order to be containers for consciousness from the sun and the stellar network. We are not meant to be cut off from or divided from the sun and the network that emanated us. That is part of the genetic squashing. That is why people think they need a microchip implanted in them in order to become a super being, because we've been cut off from the sun and our higher faculties have been diminished, or in some cases entirely degraded, so that we cannot do the things that we ordinarily would do. And now we need things like technology, because not everybody has a perfect photographic memory. In order to remember things, people first required the technology of the written word, or, some kind of symbolic language, writing things down. And eventually this has turned into, books and computers and memory sticks and all of the type of ways that we have of storing information. Your human operating system, your computer, your organic computer, is supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be able to remember everything that you've ever done and said and experienced throughout your whole life. And the idea that it cannot shows that we are working with not only flawed software, but possibly flawed hardware. And it's also a good realization to understand. So I offer the Flying Rainbow Lasagna as a tool for rewriting your software code, which is your DNA. We must also understand that there are some changes to our consciousness that were so profound that it might be like when you have a scratch in the middle of your back and you require some assistance, like, can you scratch that spot for me? I can't quite reach it myself. Now I'm going to speak about how context, and none of us came here alone. I go through kind of like a theme on each weekly broadcast here. So when you came here as a little infant, you didn't come here as a spaceman with all of your breathing apparatus and your toothpaste tubes full of goo that you would eat throughout your whole entire life. No, of course not. You came here and you became part of a context of Earth and the world, and you got nourishment from the world, and you also gave energy to the world. Okay, well, Earth is actually connected in a whole context, a whole galactic context of consciousness, and Earth is undergoing her ascension right now. And let's not say that ascension, let's not confuse it with the literal interpretation from the Bible of the Christian rapture. And Christian rapture is basically the idea that at the end of time, after everything is going to be destroyed, or slightly before everything is going to be destroyed, the quote-unquote good people are going to be floated upward, leaving behind the quote-unquote bad people to suffer and be destroyed. And I am not a literalist biblical Christian, even though I wear a cross because I have had a personal experience of Christ consciousness and my consciousness being saved and being having a continuation of my life journey. So that is profound, and I wear this symbol in order to reclaim it from the negative and erroneous associations that it has accumulated like a tarnish for a very long time. The cross that I wear doesn't have anything at all to do with the dogma of the Christian church as it presently stands, or of the Christian religion. However, Christ consciousness is real. Christ consciousness is an aspect of our own anatomy. So it's not just something that is for people of a particular religion. It's not like, oh, you only get to be saved, and go to heaven if you're the right religion. Then you get patted on the head by Jesus. Good boy, good girl, you go to heaven now. No, actually, Christ consciousness is an aspect of our own anatomy. It's like having a pineal gland. Guess what? Everybody, unless you were born with some kind of, crazy genetic defect, has a pineal gland. Some people it is activated and cultivated. Some people it is not, and it's kind of filled up with junk and not very effective at doing its job. That's just like saying everybody has a gluteus maximus muscle. This is your butt. Some people actually use it to run marathons. Some people just use it to sit and not do very much with it. But everybody has the anatomy, and it's not like it's just for special people. So let's get rid of this, clear out the software program that says that there's any kind of elitism, that only special people are going to get to go into heaven, only people who have read this book, only people who went to this building and sang this song on a particular day of the week. No, I can't stress that enough. Now let's get into what ascension is, as I've made a distinction of what I do not believe that it is not, or what I believe it is not. I believe that ascension is an alternative to death, or the original alternative before death was invented. Ascension was the inevitability that you came into the physical presence, you were still connected to God or the source that created you, had all of your life experiences, maybe even for 1,000 or a couple of thousand years, while your body never was diseased, never felt discomfort, never was in a state of anything other than total health. And then when you were bored and have achieved what you needed to in the physical, you were celebrated out of reality. And this is the big distinction that I'm trying to make, because death, when people die, they think of it almost like they think of like throwing something away. And we live in a very disposable culture. Your pen runs out, you throw it away. Your razor gets dull, you throw it away. Your clothes don't fit or they get, messed up and dirty, you throw it away. People even think of the planet as a disposable planet. They think, oh, we'll find another Earth-like planet, or we'll terraform Mars. We'll destroy Earth, and then we'll throw it away. We'll go to a different planet. And they even think that with their own body. They think, oh, reincarnation. I can smoke tobacco or do whatever I want, ingest a bunch of carcinogens. This body can die, and then I'll throw it away. I'll discard this body, and I'll get into a different body. I'll be born again in a different format. And a big aspect of this is, your enemies. If you don't like your enemies, how are you going to get rid of them? Where do you get rid of them? How do you discard them? Why, that's easy. You kill them. Anything that you don't like, you kill it, and that gets rid of it, quote unquote. Well, ascension is the opposite or total antithetical, different approach than discarding something. It is saving something indelibly forever. So I've used the analogy of doing word processing on the computer where you can save different drafts, like of a term paper. You're writing a special big research paper. And at first you write it and just get the information out, and it has tons of mistakes, but you press save. And then you go back in and you edit, and you might take things out that don't need to be there, put things in that do need to be there, or rearrange the information so it flows better. And with each edit, you say, that's getting better, let's save it. That's getting better, save that draft. Better, 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 save that draft. And then finally, you've done all of your editing, you've fixed all of your spelling mistakes and corrected all of the grammar, and you're prepared to turn in your term paper to your professor. So you press save, and that you have completed that paper. That is what ascension is. It is saying that you've gone through all of these processes of refinement. I'm speaking about you as an individual, and then we'll apply it to the planet. That when you go through the time vortex and you are like Groundhog's Day, experiencing all of these different possible iterations. What happens if I do this? I die. If I do this, I die. If I do this, I die. Over and over and over, until you finally make the right combinations of choices in order not to die. And so in Atlantis, or the antediluvian sophisticated worldwide culture, before human genes were degraded and before levels of higher consciousness were lost, everybody ascended. And the process was not like, if you have an enemy, you're like, I want to cut that person's head off. I want them to go away. Or sometimes, I don't like that person. I'm going to isolate them, put them on an iceberg, send them as far away from everyone else as I possibly can. The idea of a person being totally cut off from all resources. No one looks at them. No one knows about them. And, they die of exposure and starvation. That is not what ascension is. Ascension is and was the process of celebrating the most highly refined and perfected version of a person. So if you could imagine, perhaps like in a monastery of the Far East, if a very great wise teacher who had lived for hundreds or thousands of years decided that it was time for them to no longer be in the physical, if you could imagine all of their brethren and sisters gathering around them, all of the people whose lives they had ever uplifted, anybody whose life they had ever taught or touched or improved in any way, or anybody who simply supported them in their journey of consciousness. They would all gather around in a circle and witness and give energy to the person who was transforming and ascending. So ascension wasn't something that was like a form of discarding someone, like, life isn't going so good, or you don't like me, I'm going to go eat worms, I'm going to go ascend, I'm going to get out of here. It wasn't like that at all. It was the ultimate goal, the way that people presently have, like a career goal or a professional goal, like receiving an Academy Award or a Nobel Prize or, some big, massive achievement. That's what ascension was the entire community celebrating that person as having achieved their greatest levels of refinement. And that celebration is like the fuel that helps the consciousness to rise and to go on its journey. So, but that is, from the time when the culture was a culture of ascension. When the genome changed, this became a culture of death. And the technology or the process that makes ascension happen went into hiding. It was kept hidden as like the teachings of the mystery schools. This was in ancient Egypt, really before even what is recorded about Egypt. But there was a time when all of the information about how to be initiated into higher states of consciousness. And the initiation was not just reading a book. It wasn't like, come to the classroom and sit down on your gluteus maximus and read words off a page and, do an intellectual exercise. That was not what an initiation was. An initiation was closer to like when people now in this time and place go to a dance party or a rave and drop acid and listen to music and look at colored lights and are surrounded by other people that are also on a journey and are transforming their consciousness. Those are what the mystery school experiences were really like. So going to mystery school was not like going to public school. It was a profound and interesting experience. It was not like cut and dried and boring and where you had to learn things and memorize them. The process for ascension was also remembered in ancient Atlantis and turned into the mummification process. Again, that was thousands of years after this natural, innate process of ascension kind of went into hiding. And the whole point being, when we hear about people who have ascended now, they're described as the ascended masters, one-offs, like Lord Jesus or Krishna or Saint Germain. They're held up as rock stars, like one person who did one thing on their own, or Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu he's the founder of Taoism in the Far East. He said not only to have ascended, or he rose up, to a higher level of reality, but he brought his horse with him. And I'm telling you, I absolutely intend for my cat, Miss Ashley, to come along too. She's been on the ascension pathway, and the point is she's been cultivating her consciousness. She is not just blithely or ignorantly going through life. She is really like an initiate, aware of her consciousness, aware of her journey and her trajectory, and she is cultivating it. And that's what it means. Just like practitioners of the Far East, they practice mindfulness and meditation during their day and during their life, and then practice similar levels of observation in between lifetimes and say, where am I going? Like when you're dead, you're going across the bardo. Where are you going? How can you control your trajectory? How can you choose your next incarnation and go in a good direction so that things are better than they used to be? So now I want to talk about our Earth and planetary ascension and what is going on. This is all part of birth of a new dimension and the coming together of formerly divergent realms, like bringing together spirit and matter. So planetary ascension, first of all, this does not mean that we have to go somewhere else. The whole idea of the Christian rapture, you're being lifted off and you're going to go live in the clouds. It's very literal and not accurate. And the other idea is the idea that Earth's going to do it on her own. No. Everybody, these are erroneous ideas, like the idea that Jesus, an ascended master, just sat there and just ascended on his own. Ascension is a team sport. We are all engaged in this process together. So we, as inhabitants of Earth, each one of us is going through our own personal ascension. We are all helping Earth to ascend. Now we're thinking of this more like childbirth. That you can be just a woman and you can have a baby all on your own. You can do that just, in your home or in the woods. It is so much better to be supported by your community, not only during your birth process, but during the pregnancy also. So that's the whole idea, that when a woman is pregnant, that she is less mobile than she would be ordinarily. Others should help her to get enough food to support the pregnancy. And especially at the end, she might need extra help. And then in the form of actually giving birth, that you might need for someone else to bring you, food or water or take care of you during that process, or to help steady your body or to help catch the baby as it's coming out, because that's a whole lot for you to handle on your own. So in our medical, industrialized Western culture, everything is so artificial. It's mostly in hospitals with doctors, and doctors and nurses rather, and midwives, even though now there is a big movement towards home birth and towards having a less machine-based, more homey, more loving entry into the world for new little humans. Even in home birth, you have a midwife, a doula, your loving partner or family members or whomever is there to help you in the birth process. So the idea that Earth would be here giving birth like some woman in the wild without a support system of people to, support her back and, hold her legs and do all the things like giving water to help make it more comfortable, that is erroneous. We are not alone in the cosmos. Earth is not alone in the cosmos, and human intelligence is not the only intelligence that exists in the cosmos. So we are undergoing this incredible moment of transformation right now, and we are not doing it alone, and it's not meant to be alone. It is meant to be a team sport. So we are all part of this process of ascension, and our planet is receiving a great deal of help and assistance from the stellar network. And the stellar network is it is inhabited by stellar beings, literal star beings. And we now need to make a distinction from beings that are the stars, like Sol. That's the name of our sun that's in the sky. I'm a person named Sol. Make a distinction between that and between beings who fly around in clank metal spaceships in the stars or in the interstellar realms of the vacuum of space up there. Those beings that require clank metal spaceships, they're not very evolved. They did not learn to do all of this just with their own bodies and with their own birthday suits and with their own natural capacities of consciousness. They are the ones that are creating a great deal of disharmony in the cosmic symphony, because we are all supposed to be using our bodies as instruments, connecting to the stellar network, and the music that we play is supposed to be part of this higher consciousness symphony. And when the beings are using clank metal spaceships to subvert the limitations that they would otherwise experience, they are creating music that is not musical. It sounds like noise. It doesn't sound right. So now we're talking about overt disclosure and who is contacting humanity and who might be contacting you. Because again, you don't require President Obama's permission to have interactions with extraterrestrials. Many people have already been having interactions with extraterrestrials and extra-dimensionals, or however we would like to use the vocabulary words to describe them. And you do not require, a government mandate in order to do so. This is all individual, and it's all on a case-by-case basis. And I also want to say a little bit about that. Mostly what we are experiencing are the smudges on our own lenses. That mostly humans are not interacting with pure abstraction. They're interacting with their anthropomorphic filter of interpretation. And if your anthropomorphic filter, your human-shaped filter, has all sorts of programming that's religious programming about Jesus and the Bible and the Messiah and what happens at the end of the world, then you're going to experience abstraction seen through that filter of perception and filter of expectation. So what ascension really is a retuning of your physical body instrument and the planetary body instrument until we are playing this beautiful cosmic symphony that redefines what it is to live in the physical world. Right now we've got this branch of science called physics that describes the world around us that we can perceive with our five senses. And this is known as the physical world. There's a whole level of the world that is not perceived by our five senses or defined and described and measured by science or the field of physics. And consciousness is one aspect of that. Physics is only beginning to admit how much of an impact observership or your perception has on reality. And that's the real meat and potatoes or nourishment of this whole, like, why do I speak on the radio each week, and why do we do this? It is because understanding how profound and powerful your own consciousness and your own awareness is. Billionaires and the elite would like to try to tell you, you are merely a pawn, you're a nothing, you are like a mote, a little dust mote flying along, just the cosmic doormat, and you can't do anything, you can't do anything about it. No, no, no. You are a totally powerful artist of reality, and you get to create reality with your consciousness. So now that we understand that, we understand there is a war to reduce and diminish and distort human consciousness. And that war has to do with pollution that diminishes your awareness, one's awareness. So that pollution can be in the form of vaccines or pharmaceuticals or medical procedures that reduce awareness. It can be in the form of environmental pollution, like anything that's in the air, food, and water that reduces awareness. It can be in the form of artificial electromagnetic fields that reduce awareness. All the things like Wi-Fi, cell phones, smart meters, Gwen towers, extremely low frequencies, all of that is not by accident. And then there's also what is known as black magic, aka extraterrestrial technology, that is the distortion of time utilizing trapped consciousness. And that's like saying taking a DNA that is supposed to act in a certain way and making it act in a diminished way, and still using it, though, like as the battery for a particular event. That is what extraterrestrial technology users do. So it's not just that they fly around in clank metal spaceships. We must begin to ask the question, what is the fuel or energy source for those clank metal spaceships? And once you begin to ask these questions and get the answers, you find out, oh, it's all victims of rape and murder. The people that live on Earth right now that are having their consciousnesses reduced and harmed during their life, upon their death, are not free to simply fly to wherever they wish to go, but instead the residual consciousness is taken and imprisoned in this extraterrestrial false container for consciousness, or a continuation of earthly experience. So all of this is like a hijacking or a distortion of something beautiful that's a natural process. Just like lovemaking is a beautiful, or sexuality is a beautiful natural process, rape is the distortion of it. And it takes away the subtle qualities and turns it into something that is not what the original intended act was. So the original intended act of having an afterlife, a residual place where people who once lived could still be. This is like the idea of indigenous people when they look at where their ancestors lived. If we look at, Native Americans, and let's say there is a place where, cliff dwellings where their ancestors lived hundreds or thousands of years ago. They do not consider those cliff dwellings to be uninhabited. They consider them to be inhabited by the spirit presence, or the non-physical consciousness presence of beings that used to be on Earth. That is how it's supposed to be. The way that it has been changed and distorted is when people die in trauma and they have unresolved emotional issues, then they end up occupying those like a time loop where they are stuck over and over. I have a friend who lived in a building that was built in the 1600s in upstate New York, in Kingston, and they would often see a ghost. And the ghost was nothing more frightening than a woman, like from the Revolutionary War period, picking up what looked like a casserole dish, like, a plate full of food from the table, and walking over to the sideboard and putting it down, like on a little side table. Sometimes they would catch this out of the corner of their eye or in a mirror. And this is not evil or malevolent, but it's just an unresolved fatty deposit of consciousness in the cosmos. That person, for some reason, that aspect of them doesn't know that they have actually died and keeps on performing the same rote, routine movement unconsciously. They're not aware, they're ignorant. So this is the idea that people can be killed, and residual aspects of their consciousness that are not aware of their death can be uploaded or kept going as a time loop, and that That residual consciousness is what the technology users in outer space are using to fly around. This matters because if you meet an extraterrestrial, and even if they purport to be the nicest, most evolved, best person in the world, you have to ask them, do you use technology? And if you use technology, where does the energy come from to do the things that you do with it? Because right now, what humans are using on Earth, we use electrons flowing in a wire, and even that is a form of trapped energy. These are not electrons that are merely plasmas that are free to flow where they wish to flow. These are electrons trapped in a wire, and we trap them in batteries. Now imagine if these are electrons that are aware, how they would feel about not being able to choose where they go, when they flow, and how strongly they flow. Think about trapping photons. If we took photons and we uploaded them or trapped them in an array that could produce electricity, but which would not allow the photons to actually flow. This is like an artificial ecosystem, because what we presently have are photons are trapped by chloroplasts, which are alive, and plants use them, and then animals eat the plants, and the consciousness is never trapped. It continues to flow. It goes from the sun to the plant to the animal that eats the plant, and then the animal that eats the plant theoretically should emit that consciousness back to the sun. And we do this when we eat mindfully. I'm chewing a piece of lettuce and I'm transmitting the sensory experience of that eating back to the sun. And we do this also when we eat mindfully. Instead of thinking about the past or grasping forwards for the future, when you eat mindfully, you are a clean, unbroken conduit giving real-time feedback about what the experience is of eating consciousness. So it's like saying you're the sun or God, and you made body parts for yourself to eat, and you broadcast back to yourself a real-time experience of what eating your own body parts are like. That's what this is all supposed to be. That's what the intention of this whole structured setup was supposed to be. And it has been diminished through entropy, which means if I send out 10 units of energy, but only 8 units come back, I've lost 2 units through entropy. So part of this is loss of consciousness through entropy. Imagine the sun is sending out energy, and it wants to get it back. It wants to know what's happening out there. The sun is a giant flashlight shining in a dark world, sending out light so it can find out what's going on out there. And we are supposed to broadcast back what is going on out here. However, our genes have been changed, and it is now very difficult for us to broadcast back to the sun and the stellar network what is going on out here. And that entropy, that distortion, that whole realm, those are the realm of the technology users. That realm is not supposed to be there. That is the realm of the smudges on your lenses. You're supposed to have clear glasses with no smudges on them so that you can perceive the sun or the light of the stars or the stellar network of consciousness directly. And right now we have intermediaries, and some of those intermediaries are literal physical objects, like the nanoparticles that are sprayed in our atmosphere that make it so that your physical eye cannot get all the sunlight that it requires, or structures in space that are literally orbiting structures in space that are intervening between Earth and the sun, blocking out sunlight either all, part, or some of the time. Like either all sunlight part of the time or partial sunlight all of the time. I think you understand, like either you can have like an umbrella that totally blocks out all of the sun, or you can have a mesh that allows through some of the sun. This is actually going on. And then there are the software programs. The ideas that are in the software programming of Christian literalism, that you need an intermediary, that you cannot ascend or touch God or get to those higher divine realms on your own, that you need to have, quote unquote, Jesus Christ as your intermediary of consciousness, that you cannot simply transform your structure and do this. Those are all the programs that are preventing you from connecting directly to this source of energy and sending back all this energy. So, but I have said, ascension is a team sport. You do not require an intermediary, a Lord Jesus, a Lord Jehovah, any smudges on your glasses in order to do this process. But what we do need, we all need to work together like a team. This is the big thing, my big realization, because it is not just like, oh, I'm just going to rise up like Lao Tzu one day with my cat. We're just going to fly up into the sky or, transform and dissipate into a different form of energy. What is really happening is Earth is getting assistance from all of these other beings that really love Earth. Just like you can imagine a really well-loved, teacher in a monastery that is on their journey rising upward with all of their disciples of hundreds of years gathered around them at their feet. Earth has many, many friends. Not only the inhabitants, us, we are here, we are helping Earth ascend. Earth has many, many friends in the stellar network. Real star people, not intermediaries, not clank middle spaceship users. And these real friends are here, like the midwives and the doulas and the nurses that are helping Earth to give birth to literally a new form of matter. That will be matter imbued with consciousness and matter imbued with spirit. No longer the distinction of matter versus energy, but now matter and energy working together on the same team. It's the end of this broadcast. We continue to give birth each and every day, so please keep tuning in, and we will work together. Thank you so much.